welcome everyone to the ScreamCast episode number 21. I'm your host, Sean DeRager, and with me as always, Brad Henderson.
Yep. I'm here.
I know that last week I said Brian wasn't going to be on the show. I lied.
He's unreliable. That's it.
No, we had a something come up here, and we wanted to get Justin Beahm back on the show. So we had an opportunity to do that. So welcome back, Justin Beahm, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Good to be here again.
No problem. We know that we got word that you're doing an IndieGoGo and raising money for a film that you'll be is it directing?
Yeah, writing and directing.
Okay.
It's called Only Dream of Me, and it's actually the first piece of what's going to be an anthology film where each segment is directed by a different person.
Okay.
And so this route allows the audience to be more interactive with the process, and I have some fun perks on there, and there's one that has some Halloween tie to it. So the campaign is a short run. It's only 20 days. And as of the recording here, there's 15 days left. Not sure when it's going to come out, but if you look up on IndieGoGo, look for Only Dream of Me, and you'll be able to find it on there.
And we'll also be tweeting the hell out of it. So
thank you guys so much for the support. Really appreciate it.
By the time you guys have heard of it, you're probably all sick of the tweets.
Yeah,
tweeting the shit out of the stuff.
I'm trying to be thoughtful and considerate with that. And not overdo it, but thank God I have so many great people like you guys helping me out.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I just appreciate
you don't do it, we'll be annoying for you.
No,
right,
you guys are great.
Yeah,
thank you.
Allow us, please. we people can get sick of us. We don't want them getting sick of you or that, for that matter.
Maybe too late for that.
I wanted to ask you on the last show, and it never came up. I know that you were planning a Halloween book for a while. Is that was that put on hold, or did that just kind of fall by the wayside, or what was going on with that?
Yeah,
or can you even talk about it?
It's originally the plan was that I was going to be writing the official Halloween book that was going to cover the entire franchise. That's something that I had approached my then partner at Trancas and Compass International. I approached him with the concept and pitched it, and he went for it. So I got a publisher lined up, and things sort of fell apart over time in the sort of logistical department on it. But my passion for it, obviously, is steadfast. And so I talked to some different people about different ways to go about it, because I didn't want to waste 2 years of work. Mm-hmm. And I have a lot of interviews in the can already and some great stuff. I mean, I'm the only person who has Carpenter talking about every single entry in the series. I have all kinds of great stuff already in the bag. So I decided to sort of take a new format approach to it. And that's something that I announced, I think, a couple weeks ago, that it's going to be a Halloween companion. Now, this, instead of being an authorized edition that's focused solely on the Halloween franchise, this is going to be a book that's close to my heart in a way that's actually larger in scope, because it covers all films that are set on or around Halloween. And the Halloween franchise, is going to sort of be the skeleton that the meat is hanging off of, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I'll be getting into some serials, into radio stuff, into television. I just really want it to be as thorough as possible, and to really zoom out and describe the concept generally. I want fans to sit down and just step into Halloween season. I want them to open the book at any time, find any portion of it, and be in the season, in the mode. Because once October starts to roll around and Monster Fest starts on TV and all of our favorite films start to creep up. I mean, there's something that, especially if you're in the Midwest where you have the season changing and everything as well, it's all senses firing during that time of the year, for me at least, and that's really what I want to have happen with this book. Cool. So it's in process again now.
Yeah, cool. That's good to hear, because I saw that when we were talking last time, and I kept meaning to kind of try to force it into the conversation, but it never worked out. So, I like to try to keep things kind of organic.
Sure.
When we're talking about this stuff, but well, that's great to hear. I'm excited. That actually sounds like it'll actually even open up the door for more people, to actually get that book rather than,
I think so.
So that'd be great.
Yeah, and I already have. I mean, I had done years ago really extensive coverage that ended up being too big to publish, actually, for Fangoria, of the Night of the Demons franchise, which is also set on Halloween. So I already have all that stuff ready to go, and I'm just such a fan of the season and of the all the films that are set around then. So it's more fun for me, to be honest with you,
cool.
to approach it from this perspective.
Very cool. Well, today we're going to be talking about The Town That Dreaded Sundown. And this is one of the earlier Blu-rays that came out from Scream Factory, and you actually were involved with the commentary. So we'll get to that in a little bit. Brad, we need to get into the Blu-ray announcements for this week. Am I right?
Nope.
Do you like what you see?
I love what I see.
Would you like to touch what you see?
Yes, I would.
Yeah, no, you're right. Recently we had, of course, Scanners Criterion came out, which looks great. Glad Criterion did a number on that. Deadly Eyes recently by Scream, which is Killer Rats. How can you go wrong?
Yeah,
it's better. It's better than Food of the Gods. So it's definitely better than Food of the Gods Part 2. But one film I wanted to focus on, I mentioned this in a few announcements ago, was a film called Under the Skin. I watched it recently, and I was by far one of my favorite films this year.
And that's with Scarlett Johansson, right?
Yeah, I was completely blown away by this film, and I can't recommend it enough. I believe Lionsgate's releasing it. And it's of course already on the shelves, and hopefully going to be on maybe some VOD. I haven't really done the research on that, but
I think it's fairly cheap too. It's not for like $17.99, just all right.
It's ridiculously just over the top, well done, beautifully shot. The soundtrack is amazing. It has so many little homages to the 80s sci-fi movies, and there's just kind of a hidden story to it. I don't want to talk about the plot at all, because I went in completely blind to this, and I just let it unfold before my eyes, and I was just engulfed into the whole entire thing. I just couldn't stop just staring, especially Scarlett Johansson's so beautiful, but it actually just looks fucking fantastic. Just such a great movie. So I want to spend a little bit more time on that. Cool. And then coming up on July 22nd is Lucky McKee's All Cheerleaders Die, which I watched recently that I thought was a blast, a fun little throwback. Kind of out of Lucky McKee's element, though. That kind of threw me off a little bit. But I'm glad to see him branch out and do something kind of crazy like this. And it was actually a good pairing because Scream Factory's Ginger Snaps comes out as well. And those two movies flow together fairly well. And then Mill Creek is releasing a shit ton of Blu-rays this year. In the first batch, Flatliners, Last Action Hero, Anaconda, and The Legend of Billie Jean all come out. That
are they redoing Last Action Hero? Because that already came out on Blu-ray.
Right, but this is the proper aspect ratio.
Oh.
And it's not that pan and scan bullshit. Because there's certain scenes on, I'm pretty sure it's on the Blu-ray too, because I had it back in the day. Is that the camera fucking moves like a pan and scan DVD back in and it just bothered the hell out of me. Well, they do great transfers for the most part, and they're super cheap. The only thing that they fall short on is fucking special features. These are basically Blu-rays that you put in and they just start playing, and there is no menu. It's a little frustrating, but they're super cheap, and they actually have decent transfers. So I think that's pretty cool. I'm going to probably expect more from them. You guys ready to bump up your pockets for September?
Dear God, dude, my pockets are already in the red.
Yeah. Well,
every week there's a new September announcement.
Here we go.
Yeah, here we go.
This is worse. Limited editions coming out. Yay!
Okay.
All right, so pre-orders.
Are we sure, Brad? Are we sure?
Yeah. We're sure. Space Raiders and Short Eyes. Space Raiders is going to be on 9/2. Short Eyes is going to be on 9/16. They're doing Scorpion's releasing both of these. It's going to be a 2,000 limit on Space Raiders for $30. Short Eyes, 1,500 copies for $30. But pre-orders go up August 1st just on the Kino site. So getting these cheaper on Amazon, like most of our titles and most things that pop up, that's probably not going to happen.
So they're pulling a Twilight Time.
I don't know if it's pulling a Twilight Time. People are doing this limited edition thing, which is cool. I don't have a problem with it.
Well, what I mean is by making it available only on this one site, because that's the only way you can get these Twilight Time titles.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's just mostly, like, I like the limited edition thing. I don't really have a problem with it. My problem is there's too goddamn many, and it's breaking the bank. Mill Creek has also announced Crawl on September 30th, which is going to be kind of cool to see on Blu-ray.
I'm excited.
They gave a release date for the first Power, which will be October 7th.
First Power, is that Mill Creek too?
No, that's Scorpion.
That's Scorpion. Okay. Yeah, I'm excited for that one. Yeah. I like that film.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm pretty pumped about that. 88 Films, of course, announced Dead Next Door a couple weeks ago, which we have a special surprise in the next coming probably 2 episodes. A very special guest for that week.
I wonder who it could be.
I have no idea. 88 Films also released like a slasher line. They're doing Mother's Day, Don't Go Into the Woods, Unhinged, and Graduation Day. I think most of them are set for a December release. That's what they're going for. But I believe Unhinged is only DVD. And they're doing like a slasher line. There's going to be, numbers on the spines. And Unhinged is number 1, but it looks like they're only doing a DVD release. So yes, I don't know. And Trancers apparently is available at Full Moon right now. I didn't clarify that, but apparently Trancers is on Blu-ray from Full Moon. I might wait for the 88 Films release because Full Moon Blu-rays, they're okay. 88 Films does really good transfers. I mean, it's basically the same company, but it seems that they spend a little bit more time on there. That's the Blu-ray announcement. Boom.
Cool.
I'm done.
Cool.
I'm tired of talking.
Okay, you're tired of talking already? Jeez, we got a ways to go. Are you gonna make Justin? Are you gonna make Justin do all the heavy lifting today?
I zone out. I just listen to Justin. I was like, I'll just sit here and listen. That's fine. So you can just talk away.
Well, I want to bring up, since we're talking about the Blu-ray announcements, I did want to bring up that as of today, when we're recording, Scream Factory announced that they bumped up because they had their Nightbreed limited edition. It was set at 5,000 copies. So of course, people like a feeding frenzy. This thing sold out pretty fast as far as all the 5,000 copies being accounted for through Amazon, through Scream Factory themselves, Shout Factory, and then other venues. And so today they announced that they were bumping it up, that they got the okay to bump it up to 10,000, which for me, looking at this, that's great. People who missed out, they have a chance to get this thing if they really want it, and no big deal. Because my whole problem with limited editions are, they run out and then people scalp them and then it's ridiculous and people who are fans of the movie don't get what they want. So now more people have an opportunity to get the theatrical cut along with this new director's cut, which is what I want because I dig the theatrical and, for what it is, it's a little bit expensive, but I got it for $55 on Amazon. I'm totally happy with that. I'll pay it. And, so of course, like we talked about last time we talked with Justin, there are a lot of people who are for it. They're excited, they're looking at the positive. And then of course, like clockwork come all the negative reactions like, well, maybe you should lower the price. And, are we going to get refunds? Or we're going to cancel our orders? Cause that's just, cause it's not limited enough. All these, so I just wanted to weigh in that number one, if you were wanting to get the limited edition, you have a chance to get it now. Great. It's a bit pricey. I'm fine with that because I look at this kind of as a political thing with Warner Brothers. Like if this is a good relationship with Warner Brothers, there's a whole slew of other horror titles that maybe we can see decent releases of. Maybe. I don't know. That's the optimistic side of myself. So, I mean, I wanted to throw this over to you guys, what you guys thought of them upping it, the number, because I haven't really heard of this happening. This doesn't, like, Twilight Time can't do this. I haven't heard of any other company kind of,
Actually, Twilight Time just did.
Well,
yeah, they did it for the Blob.
And
did they? Okay.
And the title that I was the most frustrated with them about, which was Fright Night.
All right, because they're going to re-release Fright Night. So,
yeah.
What do you guys think? Do you think this is just kind of like we talked about last time, just kind of the run-of-the-mill, all the negative people kind of coming out, just wanting to bash them, or?
I think where we are right now with physical media is that it's moving from the realm of pop culture into collector culture, and collectors care about exclusivity. Mm-hmm. It matters for them to be the first person to share a title with someone, or even share like the news of a celebrity's death or something. Like there's a culture around first and few that I think comes into play here. So I understand where people are concerned. I think it's knowing that there are so many people who want this title. I mean, I think it's wonderful that there's more accessibility on it. I'm just shocked that they didn't consider that on the first round. I can't imagine that they were underselling this to everybody, thinking, we'll be lucky if we do 5. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
From what I've read and everything, and what I've heard in a podcast interview with, was it with Cliff?
Yeah.
He said that number was dictated by Warner Brothers themselves, and because they own the rights to the theatrical. So they gave the number, you're only allowed to do 5,000 because of whatever reason. And because this was selling so well, Cliff said that they went back to Warner Brothers and asked them, look, can we up this number? Because we're in this for like, what, 2 weeks or whatever, and we've already sold through the 5,000.
Well, I wonder if they're going to do that on Halloween then too.
Yeah, I don't know.
That was my question.
Yeah.
But it seems that Halloween's still
there.
Still available.
Yeah. So it sounds like Warner Brothers gave the okay to another 5,000. They're kind of at Warner Brothers bidding as far as this goes.
I think they're still trying, at certain times. I mean, they're a great company. They're knowledgeable guys. They know what the fans want. They listen to the fans. I mean, they're very active on social media. It's probably just one of those things where, they just misgauged. That's all. Because I remember in an interview with Jeff Nelson where he was surprised of how not bad, but The Howling didn't do as well as they thought it was going to do. Like when it was first came, I don't know what that stands as now, but this is a couple months ago I saw this interview with him, and he just said they were surprised that The Howling didn't do that well. Maybe it's something like that. Maybe they thought 5,000 was, because I mean, look at all these other companies that are selling. Twilight Time sells pretty well, but I mean, a lot of their titles don't sell out. Yeah, the 3,000 right away, and who knows? Since this already been on DVD from Warner Brothers, like what's going to happen? I don't know. I think it's just maybe they just misshot. That's all it is, and they saw, and it's one of those things. At this point, they're like damned if they do, damned if they don't, because they got yelled at for doing what they originally did, and then they try to help. I mean, they didn't, lower the price, but that wasn't part of the deal. They just raised the number. That doesn't mean it, decreases the value so much. I mean, it's still worth. I mean, you got to think 10,000 copies, and look how many horror people there are that collect. Give them a break. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, you can't argue with more accessibility. That's also my political stance. Is like, why try to mandate what people can't do? Like, what right do you have to say, no, you can't have this kind of relationship or something like that? I feel the same way here. It's like, just because you were one of the first in line doesn't mean that you should be one of the few who have access. And ultimately, it's just better for fans. And you made the great point about the studio relationship as well. This proves to them that this is viable. It's the same thing that Anchor Bay had happen with Good Times not to go back to Halloween again, but on the Halloween franchise, because they had 2 and 3, because Universal didn't care about them at all. And then they saw what Anchor Bay was doing with 1, 4, and 5 and went, whoa, wait, we need that back. And so they licensed it, they got it back from them once their license was up.
Yeah.
And then they went and, started releasing those too. So I think that, proving the worth of this kind of stuff in this age when a lot of studios are so quick to shovel off mountains of titles to places like Mill Creek, I think is worth it, worth the experiment in itself to see if more will sell.
Yeah. And also one last thing, before I want to jump into the Town That Dreaded Sundown, because I think this one's ripe for discussion. But one more thing was also that we found out, and by the time you guys hear this, maybe most of you know, but maybe some of you don't. There was some missing audio in the Nightbreed director's cut, and they still haven't figured out exactly how it's gonna, fit in to the cut, because I think Cronenberg is.
Oh no, not Cronenberg.
God damn it, not Cronenberg. They have scanners on the brain.
Clive Barker.
Clive Barker is cutting this right now, and so they're in the middle. Like they're not even done. Like no one has seen this version of the director's cut yet. You know what I mean? It's still being worked on. The extras are still being worked on. And
you better hurry up.
I know. I got it down to the wire.
Yeah,
but they have
in October.
They have all this audio that they just do not have time to sift through. So they're going to have to make a decision about what audio to use, and if there's not any audio,
use the VHS.
They're going to use the VHS audio and or subtitles. Kind of like I believe the Alien 3 director's cut, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I told you about that, you douchebag.
I know. I'm trying to.
You say this is credit to Brad Henderson for telling me about the Alien 3.
Yeah, Brad Henderson told me that.
Well, I mean, there's audio in Alien 3, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just really shitty.
So,
I mean,
who knows how many scenes this is, though? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, if it could be like 30 seconds, it could be a lot of the note on Cabal cut, which is known as just the director's cut now. But I mean, I think if they did subtitles, they might piss people off. And that's the thing, is that they have to be kind of careful. They're not a company to say, you know what, we're just going to do our own thing, fuck the fans. They actually pay attention and listen. And they also do, a lot of the films that have been requested by fans, they have actually released or maybe pushed forward maybe a little bit, because they do listen. It's not like they ignore. They're very active on social media, like I said.
The Keep. Keep requesting the Keep.
They're not going to get the Keep. Paramount, whatever. But anyways, I hope if they don't have any other options, I think using the VHS audio and just telling the fans, that's one thing that I think that Scream Factory should consider a little bit, is maybe warning the fans a little bit, because they do tend to spring things on, but you have to think as well, they're springing things on, but they are super fucking busy.
Yeah.
Like, they can't, lay down pillows for you to fall on and, cry about. Jesus Christ. They have to spring things on, but maybe leaning in a little bit more, because they still haven't really come out and publicly said about the audio yet.
Right, there hasn't been an actual.
And there's going to be
release.
there's a lot of people that don't know about that. So I feel bad, because it looks like on the fan side they're kind of like digging their grave a little bit, but like I said, there's just a few negative Nancys out there. But like I said in the last episode when we talked about negativity and horror, it's sometimes the bad outweighs the good, because it's so hurtful sometimes, or you can just see like, God damn, dude, why don't you just calm down? Because I saw one person just completely go flip out on Facebook saying about the number, they better get a low number. They better not get like 6,000. They should get under like 200, because they were one of the very first, because they know this, they were one of the very first to pre-order. Dude, you care about a fucking number? Jesus Christ, dude. Then you don't care about the movie that much. You're just, like Justin said, it's more of a collector thing than a fan, which is fine, but whatever.
One thing I will say about these guys is that they are working, this is just from personal experience as well, is that they're oftentimes working on putting these titles together right up until they're printed. Mm-hmm. The day before sometimes. So if they have an issue with audio on this one, it could very well and very well likely is the case that they aren't saying anything yet, because they haven't exhausted all the opportunity to try to track this thing down, and they're going to work as hard as they can to get there. And when it comes time, they're going to let people know. Yeah. I mean, they will make it right, but what they're doing that no other company out there that has handled this title, for example, has done is go through all this legwork. Yeah. Try to make this as complete as possible. Work with Clive. Get everybody on board with this that's relevant to make sure that it's approved, that it is as complete a cut as you can put out there. You know, I mean, there's going to be some hiccups along the way, and they're going to continue working on it until they know that they absolutely have no other options.
I think the last thing I'll say about this is, to me, Nightbreed, I've always been familiar with the theatrical cut. I like the theatrical cut. I don't understand, you know, it's not a perfect movie, but I dig it. I dig the monster design, you know, I dig like the dreamlike quality of the movie. And I just found out about the Cabal cut just maybe a couple years ago. And just the fact that I have the opportunity to own both cuts, for me, that's worth, you know, and I'm going through Amazon, to me, that's worth $55. You know, to have both those cuts. And, you know, some people, they already have the DVD and they're just going to they have the opportunity to spend $20 and get the director's cut. That's great. But for me, I want to own both and in the highest quality possible. Cause maybe I'll end up having the theatrical still be my favorite cut of the movie. But, you know, owning both versions is fun for me. I like owning the director's cut with a theatrical cut. I mean, I own the theatrical cut and the director's cut of Kingdom of Heaven, for crying out loud.
Well, it's pretty rare that we have the chance with art to have different perspectives on the same piece.
Yeah.
We just don't. Like there's an original painting, there's an original film, and so the chance to even have a different view on one of these, that's worth it in itself. That's such a rarity in cinema.
So I'm happy with it either way. You know, it's September and October are going to be. I'm saving money right now for those months. I have to, but if you're just one of those people who just kind of, you know, buys whatever comes out and doesn't really think about it, you're gonna have a rough couple months come September. Yeah. But
another thing, anyway. if you don't purchase, I'm not telling you have to purchase Nightbreed for any chance, but you got to think that, you know, you want to support these guys as much as possible, because if they are, like Sean said, if they're creating this relationship with Warner Brothers, they own so many horror films you guys don't even know. And of course, they're all locked up. This is something special that they're going out there and releasing this. Scream Factory, and to see this actually progress and the numbers go up, there's a very good chance that we might actually get future titles. Night School, people, Night School. That's all I'm saying. But anyways, we're done with Nightbreed. We can move on, Sean, if you'd like.
All right. We are jumping into the Charles B. Pierce flick, The Town That Dreaded Sundown.
Jenkins, age 19, brutally attacked March 3rd, 1946. Howard W. Turner, 29. Emmylou Cook, 17. Bodies discovered in a wooded area on March 24th. Roy Allen, 17. Peggy Loomis, 15. Both found dead April 14th in Spring Lake Park. Floyd Reed, age 34, murdered in his home on May 3rd. Mrs. Reed shot twice, but survived. This man's identity is unknown. He was believed to be between 30 and 40 years old. He wore a white hood and was known only as the Phantom Killer. World War II had just ended. In Texarkana, Arkansas, boys had come home to their families. Husbands reunited with their wives. It was a happy, peaceful time. Until the Phantom Killer struck. For 4 months, he held an entire city in the icy grip of terror. Now, Charles B. Pierce brings this incredible, shocking, and true story to the screen in The Town That Dreaded Sundown, starring Academy Award winner Ben Johnson as Captain J.D. Morales of the Texas Rangers.
We got a cold-blooded killer here. A man who nobody sees. A phantom who, so far, hasn't made any mistakes.
Andrew Prine as Deputy Norman Ramsey of the Texarkana Sheriff's Department.
The only thing we really do know is that we've got a very strange person on our hands.
Town That Dreaded Sundown, a true story.
So this week we're talking about The Town That Dreaded Sundown. It was directed by Charles B. Pierce, who you may know from The Legend of Boggy Creek, and starring Andrew Prine of Grizzly and Dawn Wells of Gilligan's Island.
Oh, Grizzly! I love Grizzly. So I like Grizzly too. That's what I like. We'll never see the light of day on that.
It also stars Ben Johnson, of course.
Fucking Ben Johnson's fantastic.
He's a stud.
Yeah.
So, all right. So this is an interesting film for me because this was my first time watching this, and I've actually never seen Legend of Boggy Creek. So I'm coming into this like I think this is my first experience with the Charles B. Pierce film. So I got to put all that out there. And
I mean, with how his role was, like Charles, like there's a lot of similarities that I see, because I remember watching Legend of Boggy Creek when I was little, and The Town That Dreaded Sundown I saw I was very young as well. Both films, like they have so much, like if they feel it's in the same universe, you know, and those two films they relate a lot. Just the way that they're shot, of course, like kind of like the documentary style that he uses in the film. It's because like he's telling a story and showing us. It's like a documentary and then a movie, documentary and a movie, and that's what both those films feel like. It's a unique perspective and a unique way to actually tell a story, and I think that's why I was remember these films so well, because I didn't understand what was happening at such a young age. Like I thought these were of course they're based on true stories, but they felt so real at the time that I saw them, and I think that's what really hit me hard and really affected me the most. And that's why I've loved them ever since I was growing up, and I still feel that I'm watching like a true life crime happening with The Town That Dreaded Sundown. Not so much Legend of Boggy Creek, because it's kind of as I grew older, I kind of disliked Legend of Boggy Creek a little more, but I gained a lot for The Town That Dreaded Sundown, because I think it's a horrifying story and a great story, and I think it's scary at times too. And anything with the Phantom Killer when he pops up, I hold my breath, and I think it's a fantastic film.
Yeah, I just didn't have a gauge on how to gauge this movie. I know that I believe it was produced by Samuel Arkoff, and he actually was involved with the Final Terror, which we talked about on our last show. Which is kind of an interesting connection. Justin, what's your connection with the Town That Dreaded Sundown? I know that you were involved with the special features and especially the commentary on this.
Yeah, this film's really unique, and Pierce is really unique. You talk about his style feeling like sort of a documentary style. I like to compare, because he had a small window of cinema. The Evictors is also on this set.
Right, yeah.
So you're seeing more from him, which is probably the most cinematic of the three, if you could say, right?
Yeah,
and
I would agree, yeah.
I compare this to the first album from a band. Because a band, when they show up in the studio the first time, probably has months, if not years, under their belt, working, grinding, doing what they do, and just the anticipation of finally showing up, and they pour their all into it, but they don't have the refinement that bands do on their 4th, 5th, 6th album, and so there's a real rawness to it. There's a certain honesty that is evident in the work that they produce. And I think that's the case here. So you're seeing a lot of things. You're seeing ambition from him. You're seeing him. He shot basically with the same crews, same location. All this stuff is shot around his town where he lived. He came from doing commercials and industrial films, so he had some technical specs under control, but the rest of it is just ambition forcing product. And so at the end, you get that meeting of creativity with somewhat limited means. They're also rural. It's not Hollywood. They didn't have massive trucks and stuff backing up to the shoot every day. So I think that it makes it feel that way because it's very honest in that way. A similar way that like Troll 2 is honest. You can laugh at it, but you can only laugh so much because you got to realize, man, they really put a lot of heart into this.
Yeah, there's an earnesty to
absolutely.
the film.
Yeah, that's the word. That's the word. My involvement with this came when first of all, this film was one of the first that I ever remember scaring me when I was a kid. And for many years, I didn't even know what it was called. I just remembered being at my babysitter's house and seeing a portion of it that absolutely mortified me. And then many years later, my friend and I were having lunch, and I'm like, let me ask you, this film, I've been trying to figure it out. He's like, oh, Town That Dreaded Sundown. I'm like, gah, okay. And at the time, Good Times had a VHS tape of it out. So I picked that up, and there it was. And it's just as effective then. So when it came time for Scream Shot Factory, I was all about wanting to do a commentary on this. They didn't have a tremendous budget for this one in terms of bonus features. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Outside of, like there were a couple of interviews on it, which are bizarre to say the least. But but when it came to but I was like, I really wanted to do the commentary. And so I tracked down the preeminent historian on the case. Jim Presley is his name. He's still alive in the Texarkana area. And he actually worked for the newspaper there back in the 70s, and he did a multi-entry series on the case where he interviewed as many people as he could find, including suspects' families and all kinds of things. And he was in the process when we recorded this of finishing up a book about his experiences with this. And his dad was a lawman at the time when the case actually happened. So his roots are deep. I knew that he wouldn't know the cinematic side, and this is the commentary that I'm one of them that if not the one that I'm the most proud of, because it's so unique in that he tackles he tackles the historical side of things, and I touch on some of that too, but I focus mainly on the cinema side, and that gives a unique perspective on a story that is unique in itself, because it plays by the rules of cinema, but also plays by the facts of the case. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really unique in that regard.
Well, I think that's what kind of struck me, because honestly, as a film, like, it didn't really grab me. I was texting Brad earlier today, about my initial reaction. I know you want to talk about it. My initial reactions to the film. And, as a whole, I wasn't really that engaged as a whole. But there's certain scenes, especially with the Phantom Killer. Those scenes are incredible, and then the actor that plays him is terrifying as this guy. Mm-hmm. And this is pre, Friday the 13th Part 2. So you have this masked killer, and he's just relentless. So that really made a mark on me. Then the fact that this was a true story, and there's not a high body count in this movie. This isn't like some slasher flick, you know what I mean, of the 80s. This is almost kind of a docudrama about the case, you know what I mean, like you would see on these kind of real crime TV shows.
Yeah.
It's almost like that's kind of what they were going for. So you're spending a lot of time with the law enforcement and some of the people, and then the narrator kind of threw me off too. But all that said, though, like, the movie itself, I didn't engage with it right away, but I've been thinking about it. I just saw this last night, but I've been thinking about it all day, like, about real life situations, because I grew up in small town Iowa, and there was a moment when I was in high school that I worked at a grocery store, and I saw this guy. He came in every time I worked, he would always come in and he would grab some groceries and head home. And this one night, 30 minutes after I bagged his groceries, he was shot and killed in his living room because he was having an affair, and this husband of the wife he was having an affair with tracked him down to his house and shot him dead as he was watching TV. Like 30 minutes after I saw the guy.
Wow.
So, these types of like real life situations, granted, like whether or not the movie worked for me as a whole, like I was thinking about kind of the real life situation, and that they never did catch this guy.
Well, that's the key to the mythology. That's the key to the interest in it as a whole. And also why I think he handled the film the way he did. Because not only is he shooting in the town where it all happened, okay, which is heavy enough, especially at that point, it wasn't that old a case. Because you're talking 77. This predates all the slasher stuff. And it was, you're just a couple decades removed from it. And so I think that's partly to maybe not to excuse, but I think that's part of the reason why he had the humor shoehorned in there. Mm-hmm. That's one thing for me. There's two things I say about this film. The first thing is that I understand that there is a remake that's been made or is in the process of being made, but I think it's ripe for remaking because I think it's a solid story that still has public interest. It's still unsolved, and it has a rich enough legacy because of this movie that a lot of people know about it, but it just general consensus is that it's like an 80% movie or so. And the other side is that the humor in this is completely out of place because the rest of the movie has such a weight to it, the way that it's handled, the way the storytelling is done. There's no levity except for the character that the director created for himself, this spark plug character. That is Pierce acting in that role. And it's just it feels so out of place with the rest of what's happening, and especially when they're playing so close to the case for the most part throughout the rest of the film. But that also, I think, which you mentioned, the actual events coming to mind as you're watching it, part of what made those scenes work so well is because they are rooted in reality, because they didn't have to stray too far from the source material for it to be horrifying and for it to be shocking. Yeah. And so
it's just one of those films that when that actual action does start and the killer does appear, it becomes a totally different movie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I really dug that because I remember watching it, as I grew up, because I had it on, Warner Brothers clamshell. And I remember watching it, and I watched it with my mom. And whenever those scenes happened, because my mom thought it was boring, but when the killer, appeared, it got really tense. And I always really, really dug that about the film. And that's some of those scenes have always stuck in my head. And I also like when people mention today or in pulp culture, because one of my favorite things is in Scream when they're in the town and Dewey says the town that dreaded, or it looks like the town that dreaded sundown. Because everybody's like in their homes locked up, because they're, the Moonlight Killer is going to be out there or something. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I always just really dug the story and the movie itself. So
did the humor, did that, do you not like that as well? Or do you kind of excuse the humor?
I know it's there.
Yeah.
But it doesn't alter the movie for me at all. Cause it is out of place when you really focus on it, but when I'm watching the movie, now that you mention it, when I go to rewatch it again, I'm probably going to notice it a little bit more. But in the past, no, I don't really. I know it's there, but it doesn't stick out. It doesn't alter anything. It doesn't change anything. But
I think some levity is important. I think levity needs to, especially with something that is rooted in reality like that. Because the movies that don't do that are movies you walk away wearing. And as you know from Boggy Creek, that's not his style. He wasn't trying to be oppressive with the stories that he was telling, I don't think. And so, it's way more slapsticky than what you normally find. Usually there would be some subtlety to how that stuff is handled. But in this, it's like, even with the yakety sax music and all that stuff, it's definitely played for shtick.
Yeah. Well, I think Pierce's character is definitely, I think, the most out of place in the movie.
Yeah, no one else is that way. It all revolves around that single character. All the humor does, basically, except for this, and even the scene where the guys dress up as women, which is that's true to the case.
Right.
But they even play that up a little bit, but it's his character that's really getting goofy with it. So he took it all himself, as opposed to projecting it onto actual characters that were part of the case.
I don't know. I think I've watched so many, and I know where I'm coming from with this is that I watched a lot of horror films growing up, and there's a lot of cheesy moments and corny moments. It just became natural, and I think that's why I never really noticed it. Because like Slaughter High. They have this weird, not the main theme song to Slaughter High, but there's this weird little synthesizer thing that plays. It's really goofy, like a little circus type song. And it's when they're picking on Marty and everything in the shower. And it just seemed, now I think about it, it's always out of place. But I was so used to stuff like that when I was younger that I didn't really ever pinpoint it and notice it and actually turn me against it or like really stand out, because I was just so submerged in it, so used to like the corniness and the goofiness. Because I would watch, like, I wouldn't just watch like, you know, The Howling and Halloween. I had a bunch of VHS tapes my mom would buy for me, and we would go to the video store and rent like the most obscure, like, low budget horror films possible. And when you have those films, there's always that weird or goofy part. I mean, like when we talked about The Video Dead, I mean, there's just so many moments in The Video Dead that are like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
But that's why I'm saying I never really noticed it before.
It's a similar film, though. I mean, that's a great line to draw, actually, to Town That Dreaded Sundown, in that it's an uneven. I mean, it's such a hybrid in that sense, and so that stuff doesn't really seem too out of place. I mean, I think just the fact that it's so over the top here, and you mentioned music, there are cases where misplaced music can pull you so far out. Like, there's a movie I really like called The Devil's Eight, and actually it was on a Shout Factory multi-pack that came out last year, an action pack, volume 1, I think. It had like Invasion of the B-Girls. What I bought it for was Unholy Rollers, or what I got it for was Unholy. I love that movie so much. And Devil's Eight's a cool movie. It's essentially a Western with these guys who are they're convicts, are trying to combat bootlegging that's happening up in the mountains outside of Los Angeles. And they're doing it with cars. So it's kind of like a hot rod movie. It's kind of a convict escapee movie. It's all these things. But the music is so goofy the entire time. You have these set pieces playing out with intense action, people being blown away, all this. I mean, it's crazy, but the music is like, it's like so goofy that it's like, man, this needs a different soundtrack. And I wouldn't say that for Town That Dreaded Sundown. I wouldn't say the humor should be removed.
No.
But my point about a remake was that if someone wanted to make a straight on Chainsaw Massacre remake type of approach with this, they could do it with this story.
Well,
I'd love to see that too.
Yeah, it's a fine line, though. Humor's a really fine line, because you look at your daily life, like even in tense situations, we deal with humor. We deal with them, you know, we use humor to kind of get past some traumatic, you know, things in our lives, you know. And so I think it's always a fine line. Like whenever I see a movie that's just 100% just dread the whole way through, I'm disconnected. Then again, if I see a movie that has two polar opposites as far as the tone goes, I'm taken out of it. It's kind of a very subtle thing, and I think all the humor should always come naturally in conversation, because when people talk to each other, it's not all, even in a tense situation, you know, you're gonna deal with it a different way, you know. And I think I'm kind of drawn and connect with movies that are more kind of natural that way. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with the remake. You know, I've only found out about it just by doing the show. Otherwise, it's kind of been flying under the radar.
Yeah, I hope it's a little more straightforward and because I would like to see a little bit more, you know, involving, you know, the Phantom Killer, Moonlight Killer, whatever you want to call him. You know, a little focusing more on the brutality. I mean, I don't want a fucking, you know, torture porn movie, but I'm just saying a little bit more on that end, a little more intense, focusing on that and maybe the case investigation rather than, you know, people's opinions or, you know, so kind of like how this was held. I mean, I still like this movie. There's nothing wrong with that. But if they did remake this, obviously they wouldn't go the same direction, because I don't think people would be into it or enjoy it. I think a totally different approach is best for something like that.
Yeah.
Well, that also goes back to the fact that this is before we were all conditioned for brutality.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to mention that this exists before, you know, any major slashers. What year did the original Halloween come out? Was that
78?
78. So this is before that.
Mm-hmm.
It came out in 76. So I'm trying to think was there any kind of slashers around that time, you know, that we know of? I mean,
well, you had like Twitch of the Death.
Christmas.
Okay.
Twitch of the Death Nerve.
Yeah.
Right.
Was out by then too.
Okay.
But I mean, think about not just the fact that it's a guy in a mask, but I mean, the liberties that were taken with it now would be seen as reflective of the slasher genre.
Yeah.
Because at the end, like the end of the film, for example, where she's being chased through the corn, there's no proof that he had any weapon in his hand at all outside of a gun at that point. But instead of just the gun, they choose to put that big pickaxe in his hand. Which now you think, well, Jason uses an axe.
Of course.
But back then, you wouldn't. I mean, that wasn't an obvious way to go with that. And the trombone scene, which is something I'm sure you'll want to discuss at some point, I was
about to bring that up.
Is one of the most horrible scenes in all of horror cinema. I mean, even if you just pull it out of this film, it belongs in a highlight reel because of how stark it is. So
random and odd, but the way that it's used, it's just uncomfortable. And I don't know really how. I didn't really know how to approach that scene because I'm like, because he's not. I don't know.
Okay, here's what happened. In the real case, the girl had a saxophone, and the saxophone went missing after they found the kids' bodies. So there's no proof that the saxophone had anything to do with it. But for about 3 weeks, all the pawn shops, all of the music stores in like a 5-state area were on high alert with the serial number, make, and model of the saxophone that everyone thought was going to be the smoking gun. Well, whoever has the sax is our guy, right? And so it was a part of the case, even though it ended up being found thrown into the brush. You know, once the brush cleared, then or like overgrowth cleared, they found it, but it was built into the mythology at that point. And so with this, what are you going to do? Have a saxophone thrown in the bushes, or are you going to do something more brutal with it? And again, it's something that would be right at home in a Friday the 13th film.
Yeah.
What he does with that, and the way that scene plays, is with such consideration for the bleakness of that moment, because you have this score all leading up, through the chase as he's tying her to the tree. After he gets her tied to the tree, all extraneous music and everything completely drops out.
Yeah.
And so all you're hearing at that point is her moaning, and you're hearing him breathing heavily through this mask. And once he starts doing the thing, once he tapes the knife to the front of it, it's so effective, because all you're hearing is his ooh as he is like stabbing her in the back. And so you're hearing three things: his grunts, the sound of the knife entering her body, and her response to it. And that lasts the entire scene, which is at least a minute long, maybe 2 minutes long. And the only thing you're seeing then is that interaction, and then it cuts to his eyes, which is the only time in the film you really see good close-up, and you see the moon kind of reflecting off. Oh, it's an intense scene. No matter what age you are, how much of this stuff you've seen, that's a pretty intense set piece.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just watching it, just like I said, I didn't know how to react. I'm like, this isn't supposed to be campy. There's really no other way you can really approach it, but it's just such an odd, moment in the film, because he doesn't really do anything like that throughout the rest of the movie.
Well, there was also a sexual component to all these crimes that they left out of the movie.
Right. Yeah.
And that the media at the time was not willing to talk about. So they just sort of brushed over it, when in reality, the file cases show that there was a lot of, so this in a way, and it's hinted at later on when the cops are having that dinner and they're discussing it. One of the guys brings it up and they kind of dance around it a little bit. But this is some sort of violation that's somewhat similar, I guess, that leans toward how brutal these attacks really were, outside of just, having him, chased around with a car and all the rest of that stuff.
Yeah. You mentioned Dawn Wells' character, who was the woman crawling through the cornfield near the end of the movie. She was only brought in for 1.5 days, I believe.
Yeah.
And her interview has a pretty great story about those 1.5 days. I mean, it's like they seem to be like the most intense 2 days of her life. You hear her talking about just all the stuff she had to go through. In one of the scenes, there was a pit bull. I think it was that cornfield scene, and they said if the pit bull, you'll be fine, but if the dog comes at you, if it gets loose, we're just going to shoot it. So of course that's what happened. It gets loose, and also she hears a bunch of gunshots, and they kill the dog. And then when she was done with that scene, she's all bloody, and she was going back to the hotel. They didn't take all the makeup off, at the set or whatever, or at the location. She went back to the hotel looking like that, and the clerk, the hotel clerk, saw her come in and just fainted right there. So her interview is pretty just so much happened in that day and a half. It's ridiculous. And
it pales in comparison. And I love Andrew Prine. I am a huge Andrew Prine fan. Seriously, I love Grizzly. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. I everything he's in, I think he's fantastic.
Yeah.
He is so full of shit in his interview on this disc, where he claims to have written the final scene in the film.
Yeah.
That is the most asinine claim that I probably see. One of the things that I've learned over the years writing for Fango and these other magazines, a lot of the people who are involved with these things, either they get used to telling stories, they can embellish, the telephone game that we all played as a kid kind of a thing. Then there are the people who want to make it sound as though they were so much more a part of something. Because at the time, a lot of them it's a gig. But over the years, you realize, man, why is that one the one everyone's asking me about? I need to have more to say about that.
Right.
I'm not saying that's the case here, but I will say he's 100% full of shit with his story. And the reason why is because the sequence he's talking about involved a train. So they had to book what the real story is that they had this small local railroad that they had to hire to run the train up and down the tracks over and over and over again to get these scenes shot. So they had to schedule that out in advance because the railroad, they had to block out that time in their schedule, but they couldn't have people coming and riding and stuff like that. You mean to tell me they show up and all of a sudden he goes, no, we need a train. No, we need to, oh, it just so happens we have a train. Now, come on. So I thought that
you can't just order up a train like in Grand Theft Auto. Just
out of all of the interviews I've seen on any disc, that is the most asinine claim of any of them. Yeah,
his interview is pretty funny. And they're talking about how during that scene, him and Ben Johnson were both hungover.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm not shocked by.
Yeah, that's not an embellishment.
Yeah, it's pretty fun interviews. That's the one thing with Scream Factory. They do have a number of interviews that are just kind of off the wall, and I actually really do like that. We'll go back to the Slumber Party Massacre one, which is just absolutely hysterical. But
the commentary on that's crazy. Where the director's kind of like belittling the guy who's moderating it. She's so mean to that kid.
Yeah,
who's doing the moderation. I'm like, oh, I felt so bad for him.
Well, that's the one where it sounds like they just put an iPhone and recorder right in the middle of the room, and
yeah.
But he'll bring something up, and she'll be like, oh, really? Well, tell me more about that then. And things like that. I'm like, whoa. she has complete disdain for this poor kid.
Well, guys, we need to start wrapping up here, but I do want to mention, like we mentioned earlier, on the DVD of this is the 1979 film The Victors, which I'm really excited to watch. I haven't seen that one yet.
I liked it a lot.
From what you were saying, it sounds like it's it's a pretty good film to check out.
It's a really, really good movie.
So it's a little added bonus.
Yeah, you can see that his skills are sort of all coming to play on that, and I love Jessica Harper, and it's again sort of a period type piece, and there's some real intensity, but he brings that raw style into it, and it makes the story that may be handled differently by someone else that much more intense. Cool. It's recommended.
Awesome. Yeah. Michael Parks is in it as well, so that's a bonus too. So I'm excited to watch that. It's a pretty fantastic disc. I mean, I was going to say, like, even though I didn't, like, as the film, I wasn't all about the film itself, I'm glad I own this because there's so much so many rich things in this. The bonus movie, the commentary is great, and I did want to touch base on that because when you listen to a commentary, you kind of want to learn new things, and that's what I thought was great about this, because you had the historian. And I kind of gravitate to, there's been a couple commentaries, I think, that they have had historians, and they've been pretty dry. But this conversation was a lot of fun to listen to. So you're learning something about the whole case and everything and the movie as you're watching it. So, it's one of the better commentaries out there.
Oh, thank you.
Like Justin said, it was, it's really, really cool because you have two people in the room that are, both so full of information on two separate sides of the spectrum on that, like you said, the cinematic side and the historian side. And it's just a lot of fun because almost in a way, it's like, you remember the old, like VH1 pop-up video?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You would have some like crazy fucking facts, but they were like super interesting. And that's what this commentary kind of remind me of, because yes, we are talking about the story, but there's just so much to know, because whenever we watch a film that's based on a true story, inspired by a true story, stuff like that, it's a lot of embellishment.
Yeah.
And it's fun to watch something like this and actually have somebody in the room that actually knows the physical case and knows the details and gives us little hints and tells us stories of what has actually happened. So you get to contrast and compare versus, watching, fucking Amityville Horror and really think that blood came out of the walls during one scene. No, but you have a sense of realism, and you get to really see that what you're seeing actually, pretty much all really did happen to an extent. And I don't know, it's just a really unique and fun commentary, and definitely one that stands out from the rest. Not saying that the rest of the commentaries are BS from Scream Factory.
Well,
of course,
there is some hit or miss.
That's the thing, is that you have to have in commentaries. I mean, you're having people are going to listen to, and they're doing it to listen to voices. So number one, you have to have interesting people. Number two, you have to have people that can carry on a conversation, and you have to have a good moderator to keep conversation going. Because sometimes you got to remember that the people that are, unlike Town That Dreaded Sundown, a lot of these filmmakers and actors, they've talked about this movie for 40 goddamn years. So what do they have to say that they already haven't? So they have to rehash all that. So it's nice to have somebody that knows what they're talking about, somebody that loves the movie and ask questions that they know that the fans want to know, or just little detailed stories, stuff like that. So this commentary by far is one of the better ones because it's not boring whatsoever.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you.
It's great. Sorry. So that's going to do it for this week's show, guys. Sorry, we gotta get going here. You can find us on Twitter, Scream_cast.
Oh God!
And you can find us at thescreamcast.com. That's all I'm going to say about that. Justin,
let Justin talk. Let Justin talk.
Jesus Christ! Come on. Justin, where can people find you, and then and where can they find your IndieGoGo site?
I guess the easiest route for both would be to justinbeahm.com, and then that'll lead you to all the links involving me and the campaign and Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff is right off there. So yeah,
perfect. Good. You can find Brad at bradfuckinghenderson.com.
Nope. Nope. Don't have my own site. It's Brad F. Henderson at Twitter. Or Twitter, whatever the fuck this is. I don't listen to the last goddamn 20 episodes. I mentioned the same goddamn name.
I love it.
It doesn't change. It doesn't change like your name, Sean, which is like fucking Fluke Starbucker or something, whatever the hell it is.
I changed it back.
Oh, God, it's so irritating when
that was 2 days
of
me just laughing at myself. Just me just thinking it's the most hilarious thing.
You're the only one that laughed.
I probably was. That's okay. And I'm okay with that. Justin, thanks again for spending time with us, and talking about, this movie, The Town That Dreaded Sundown. And,
thank you guys.
We wish you all the best with the IndieGoGo and, campaign, and we really want to see that movie made. So.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. Again, thanks for the call, and it's always a pleasure to talk with you.
No problem. And I promise, next week, Brian shall return. The return.
That's because you could promise it because it's already recorded.
Right.
we had to bump
cheating.
it. And we just had to bump it because we had an emergency podcast we had to do.
You're raising the curtain a little bit too far. People aren't, we have to keep some sort of mystique.
Who cares? We talk about Terror Train.
Okay. All right. All right. So we'll talk to all of you next week. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Oh, don't tell me you're leaving. The party's just begun.
Seriously, guys, the new Braid album is shit. It's really good.
Here we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, then why the fuck are you asking me?
I don't know. Jesus Christ. I'm dialing Justin.
Well, I don't know what the fuck you're doing. Is he like...
Oh, there we go. It's ringing like a phone.
Yeah, really weird.
Hello, this is Justin. I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
Whoa.
Thanks.
Whoa.
At the tone, please record your message. When you've finished
Hold
recording,
on, I'm going to hang up the call and bring it back.
Or fun for more options.
Hold on one sec. Let me check on something real quick. Sorry, guys. God damn.
No problem,
Hold on,
Sean. Just make sure your kids are okay. Could be the Phantom Killer.
We'll listen to Braid while you're gone.